Call the meeting to order at 6:02 on January 28th, 2025. For those of you who are on Zoom, there's a mandatory blurb which I'll be reading. This meeting will be recorded and will be posted to YouTube and other social media platforms. By participating in this meeting, you understand that the recording could contain your video stream or your audio stream, including images of yourself or anyone in the room with you. If you choose to enable your video or audio device during the meeting, as well as anything or anyone else that may be in the background, could be recorded. The recording could include any opinions you contribute and anything you say about yourself. On occasion, chat within the meeting could also be captured in the meeting recording. Therefore, no data recorded if they actively participate or not. We'll now turn it over to Jess for attendance.
I don't need to do roll call because everyone's here, I think.
Everyone's here?
I can't remember. It's been so long since we.
Fantastic. Fantastic. I'll turn it.
Mr. Wiggler, Ms. Chamberlain, Ms. Kelly, Ms. LaRange, Mr. Nutter, and Mrs. Thompson's not here.
Okay, fantastic. Full house. I'll turn this over to Colleen for some opening remarks.
Sure. So I just want to remind folks that tonight is really very preliminary as we start to work on the budget. And I just want to make sure that everyone is aware that Cheryl is helping us out right now. Julia has given her resignation at the end of last week. She just has found that the switch to municipal to regional was pretty different than anticipated. And so we just want to thank her for, her work. And we have had some challenges in working on the budget. So Cheryl's been consulting with us. We called her. We asked if she could give us a lot of help in a short amount of time, and she has stepped in to do that. So we feel good that the numbers you're going to see are actual numbers, but it is not how we probably would have come forth for our first meeting. So I just want to be really transparent about that. And you will have information. You may not have all the information you always have at our first meeting together, but we have a next subcommittee meeting scheduled for February 13th. We believe then we'll be able to give you a much more detailed and thorough presentation and report. But we will certainly do our best tonight. And I just want to thank Cheryl for being willing to come out of retirement. So we're going to start with our presentation.
Look on the screen.
Is it going to come up on the screen?
up.
Yeah, I can see it, I think. I think we'll be all right.
A minute here.
No worries. I'm going to be like the fifth grader from Ruggles. Next slide, please.
I know.
And next slide. So each year we have a lot of challenges when we're creating our budget. This year is no different. We have been sitting on MARS meetings and MASS meetings, and I'm sure you all heard the governor's state address, maybe 2 weeks ago at this point, but there was very little said about education. I was a little, anxious about that. But what we have found out is that our minimum aid is only at this point going to be $75. Now, I will remind you that everybody says that the governor's budget is the bare minimum, right? Like we're guaranteed to get that. So our hope is with really pushing on our House and Senate that these numbers will increase. We've decreased enrollment, which puts us further into hold harmless debt. We, again, still are struggling with hiring. We're not getting our positions filled in a timely manner. That's increasing our substitute rates. Cost of substitutes are really high. And in special education, and Jill has reported this to you when we've met, that she has had to contract services from time to time just to meet students' IEPs. We've also had this transition from, after the pandemic and trying to make up learning loss and whatnot. But one of the things we did with our ESSER funds, like everybody else, was we went one-to-one with all of our devices. Well, now we need to replace those devices. So, and we don't have the grant funding to support it. So that's a large increase you're going to see in there. Continued social emotional learning needs, mental health. This year, we're seeing an increase with actual physical needs that we're needing to provide supports for that we haven't had to previously. And the clinical needs are still really high. We are very pleased that we've made adjustments to our curriculum. We've adopted high quality curriculum materials. We had grant funding to do that. However, all of those curriculum materials need to be refreshed each year. And so now we have these recurring costs with those programs. Next slide, please. We always like to sort of prioritize what our district priorities are, and this really hasn't changed for us. We still need to provide strong academic support, and that is for all students. We want to focus on inclusion and effective models of special education delivery. Sort of a fun fact that we uncovered as Cheryl was looking through our enrollment process. She was monitoring some of our students that may have transferred out of our district somewhere else. And what she noticed was that some of those students are students who receive special education services. So we're paying close attention to that. You've heard Jill talk this year about us really needing to have a focus on special education programs and keeping our own students in district. And you will hear us speak about that within the budget. And that's our second diverse, meeting the needs of our diverse learners. So Cheryl always likes to remind us that we focus on enrollment first, because that's what we do here. We're serving the needs of our students. So our resident enrollment is our top number. Those are the kids who live within our 5 communities. And even those who might be living temporarily outside the district, right? So they might be in foster care and still return to us, different things like that. Our school enrollment are the kids that are in our district seats, and our district enrollment are all of our students served by the district. So those are even our students that might be in out of district placements. We also have some students who might be homeschooled and only receive their services here, or preschoolers, or different situations like that. But those students are the students we're financially responsible for. Our resident enrollment, Cheryl and I had this conversation earlier, is, and I don't want to misspeak, so I'm going to it's the students that, I'm sorry.
It's defined here. So it's the students who live in our 5 communities, or those that are in foster care
Okay.
with a relative or whatever. But resident enrollment is very important for our district, because that's the way in which the budget is apportioned to our towns. After the required local contribution that is set by DESE, any amount of the budget over that is shared by the district based on the percentage of enrollment in the towns. So you can see here, we're down by 44 kids from last October 1. Now, that's not from when we closed in June. It's last October 1. But again, that puts us in deeper hold harmless debt. We only saw an increase in aid 1 year, and SOA is in its 5th year of adding money to the foundation budget. So we're not faring very well. What you can see is I also show it from 3 years ago in FY 22-23, we're down 71. And I've been keeping this data for 22 years. And so we're down 1,100 kids. We used to have over 3,200 kids in our district. And that was the FY05 year, 2004-2005 school year. So that's why this enrollment is so important, because you need to get this correct to make sure that apportionment to our towns are correct. it's just a graphic. There's a lot of visual learners. I've been told that during years of presenting. For the visual learners, we don't want numbers, so you can just take it in a graph format. We also have had NESDEC do a demographic study for us a number of years ago. So you can see that peak there in FY05 of 33,000 something kids resident. This is resident, not in our school districts. But you can see that deep dive that we have had in residential enrollment. We had a peak. And then the year with the real full school year that we came back after COVID, we had a peak, but right back down again. I'm providing these graphs. The members of the committee that have been here a while, they saw these graphs last year, but I wanted to provide them for the new members of the committee. You can see that there's not going to be, this goes out to fiscal 34, so 9 years from this year. There's not going to be much increase according to the demographics in our district at all. The green line is Hubbardston. So this is pre-K to 12. Hubbardston is the one that's gaining ground in here. And I think we focused last year on saying Hubbardston is going to take over Barry as being the largest of the 5 towns with kids in school. But you can see everybody else is relatively flat for the next 8-9 years. This is again part of the NESDEC report, broke it down from pre-K to 5. You see Hubbardston's graph isn't going. It's the next one. That's where the numbers are. In middle high school, you're gaining them in Hubbardston. That means a larger proportion of the pie, Deb.
Well, there's more people to pay it then, isn't
Very true. Very true. Do you want me to continue?
Yep.
So the school enrollment comparison, again, these
Next
are.
one, Jeff.
Next one. Next slide, please. Do I have to say that? Exactly. Yes, that's right. These are, again, the kids from all the towns that come here, which this year are 29 different towns, that are sitting in our seats. So they're sitting in our seats. You can see that we're still down, kids sitting in our seats, 57 kids from last year, 61 over the 3 years, and still 1,100 over time. A trend, you can see that the only school that gained enrollment this year was. I just provide this for information purposes. You can do some trending as you see moving kids through the grades of where they are. And then I subtotal the elementary schools pre-K to 5. I subtotal middle school and high school. As I mentioned, there are 24 sending towns in our 5 towns. So kids from 29 towns are coming to our schools. I know that we were over 30 at one point. This number, the 273, you'll see that at different places and being a different number. That's because we have 3 kids for next year. And actually, this year it's 2 years and it's difficult. 3, let's just say 3, that are school choicing in, but they're in out of district placements. So we've had that over time. We've had that. But you'll see some places where it says 270 because those are the ones sitting in our seats, and then 273 are what are actually coming here. This is a number the committee generally asks. So sometimes you'll hear from committee members or the public, why are we losing school choice kids? You'll see the graph and it's going down. Well, there's less school age children everywhere. So, but you can see as a proportion of our total enrollment, it's roughly stayed the same. I mean, that's the highest is 1402 and the lowest is 11.9. So that's not a very big gap. So school choice has become part of us and we'll be here for time to come. Okay, there you go.
Okay, so some of the things that we have to think about when we're building our budget are just our collective bargaining agreements. We have to make sure that we have all of that factored in there. We also have some groups that we will be negotiating with this year. We still have to do the custodial and the office managers. And also any of the, we sort of put a number in as a holding place for any open or requested positions. So we have some retirements. We like to budget for about 70,000 for our K-8 teaching positions, but we do budget a little bit higher for our grades 9 to 12 because usually those teachers that come in might have more years of experience, different things like that. And we also make sure we increase the COLA the same rate as the bargaining agreements.
This isn't in the packet.
It's not.
So,
Small, but very small.
yeah, this is small to see. And I don't think it's in your packet. It's not. So what we can do is we can post it up for you, but I can,
I think.
okay. I can also go through it for you. I think mine is up to date from earlier today. So we do have some retirements. As I said, we have 2 teachers at the high school, a social studies teacher and a science teacher. Julia's resignation. So there's a school business administrator. Nancy Landry is retiring at the end of the year. She's our human resource manager. One of our office managers is retiring at the end of the year. We currently have a certified nursing assistant position. We're going to reorganize that for next year. Part of the role of the certified nursing assistant really is to help with screenings and different things like that. But by hiring a CNA, be able to do. So we're going to reorganize that position. We have an open lunch recess monitor position due to a resignation. Now, we also have had some grants that are ending this year, and we've brought those positions into the budget. So you've heard us talk about the effective practices grant. That's the co-teaching grant. We have 3 intervention tutors in there. We've moved them over to the budget. We have an ad for next year, a special education teacher. So part of us thinking about the needs of our diverse learners is we're looking at our numbers of our elementary students in our therapy learning. We have a special education profession. We have some open positions for our one paraprofessional is being paid out of a grant. That grant is likely to be decreased. We've gotten a heads up that the federal grants will probably be decreased next year. So we're moving that paraprofessional into the budget. We have an opening for a speech therapist. You've heard Jill talk about this several times this year. She hired an SLPA to fill the gap, but we still have a need for a speech language therapist. We also have, I was speaking about children with medical needs. So we need a nurse for a middle school student, and we need a part-time nurse to work with a preschool student next year. We also are hoping, one of our goals is to build an alternative program for our high school students. So several of our students actually go to alternative programs in other districts. I think we have 4 altogether currently. We have a need for our students to have who struggle with anxiety, social, emotional, mental health needs. And sometimes that is spurred from academics and the environment and different things like that. So we are looking to build our own alternative learning program. So we have added in here both a teacher and a clinician. We also have plans. I'm going to speak to this, even though it's there's no budget impact. But we've also been working with our elementary principals, our intervention specialists, and our coaches. We have several students who are coming up as students who have a need for a language-based learning classroom. So we have added into the budget, it's not a position, but we've added into the budget a partnership with Landmark so that we can start our own elementary language-based classroom. We have a plan for that of taking existing staff to make that happen. But that is something next year we hope to have both an alternative learning program, a full middle school therapeutic program, and a language-based elementary classroom program. And our goal would be that we would build one at the middle school as well once the students start to age up. We just felt like doing both at the same time. We thought we'd be more effective focusing on elementary and then looking to expand that over time. The last thing you'll see down the bottom, because it comes from another funding source and not the general budget, is that we do have a middle school math retirement that we will be looking to fill as well. Any questions on any of those? I know that's kind of a lot to take in.
I'm being told the audio keeps cutting out.
Oh, I wonder if it's our internet. Can you hear us now?
Yeah, it kind of comes in and out every now and then it'll be fine for a couple of minutes. So it might just be a connection.
I was saying the internet was unstable on
Oh.
the screen.
We're sorry.
It's windy.
So we are going to unveil to you our very preliminary budget for this upcoming school year.
What I'd like to do is run through this screen, and you have a copy of this in your packet. Because of the time crunch in trying to get a bottom line number to you tonight, we don't have a line item budget in the format that it usually comes. Actually, I would like, for the little amount of time that I'm here, I'd like to ask the committee to consider using the document for the line item budget that, well, this is actually the detailed line item budget, 531 pages. But if you don't do the detail, I think it's 47 pages or something, use that as the line item budget to take time to take it out of there and then key it into an Excel spreadsheet. And then but tonight we have the function subtotal report in your packet.
Jess, can you back one slide?
We don't have it on the slide. We don't. We have the one in gold, but the report itself is not in here
Oh,
because it's 4 pages long. So that's the one that has the gold highlights on it. I couldn't print to the color printer tonight, so Jess was nice enough to do everything for me.
So put it in, but
Oh, you didn't?
I'll put it in
I
the,
think Crystal has it right there.
yeah, put it in the packet. I thought I put it in the,
So usually what happens is the line item budget will roll up to each of the categories that are on that sheet. But when I say function subtotal in gold, those are the subtotals in gold on that report. Then those subtotal up to the appropriation control report, which is the 1-page document, which the school committee votes on to approve the budget and approve transfers. Said and done with making the adjustments all the way through. Our preliminary budget is at a 7.09% increase or $2.8 million. When we're getting $75 per student in aid. So we know that that's going to be a hard sell this year. We know that there's a lot of work to be done. There are a couple of things that we don't have actual costs on. There always are when it's this early. This Friday, we have the contract negotiations that Colleen talked about. We have the heating oil bid opening on Friday. What we hear is it might actually go down, so that's a plus. The retired teachers' health insurance through GIC has not been released. We have sent a feeler out to our contact at GIC. Last year, we didn't get that number till March. And our business insurances, Julia got the quotes today. So we'll be speaking with Healy Brothers in the next couple of days and see where those are, and we'll be able to make changes. Now, those quotes are for this coming March, so this fiscal year. So we still are then estimating what FY26. So it's not a hard number, never has been. You want to talk about revenues? Do you want to talk about any of the line items in there? We can go into
Yeah,
detail.
I just have a couple, well, actually a comment and a question. The first comment is Dr. Allen's committee, policy and procedures, reviewed a number of courses that had very low enrollment. I think we got a couple meetings ago, we got a list of all those courses. I mean, I would think that if we need to take a hard look at some areas, that might be one of them. And, I realize that, all the courses are important and, we decided that as a result of his meeting. But the bottom line is, if we really get into a critical situation, we might need to take another look at them. I'm not saying cut anything, just take another look at them. The other thing I had was, in just going through this, the appropriation control report, almost $90,000 increase in athletics, and we eliminated a team.
Yeah, so I'm happy to speak to that. So transportation costs have gone up tremendously, and so athletics has been impacted by that. They do use the vans wherever they can. So imagine that would be even greater without those vans, to be honest with you. So a good majority of it is in some of his supplies and materials costs. So what I want you to know is this budget truly, you got to look at your field paint. You got to look at, do you know what I mean? So I want to be really clear about that. And we will absolutely, I promise you, do that. But this was, what everybody feels like they need at the current cost. So we will absolutely work on that. But transportation, you're going to see that as a huge factor throughout the budget. You're also going to notice the tech line item, right? So like I talked about, that refresh cycle brings that up really high. Any other thing that stands out that you want more information?
That's a pretty significant increase.
The building and grounds. So you'll remember that last year we started with having some capital projects in building and grounds, and then we took those out and we put them into rural school aid. Right now, we still have some capital projects. Move a floor that has some asbestos underneath it. So all of those projects are in. So we have not been able, but we will be able to, before the February 13th meeting, start to prioritize and cull some of those things out and really think creatively about the budget. So last year, I think we had done that. We went through proposal 1 very quickly. And when you saw proposal 2, that's what you were looking at. We just did not have enough time. We felt like we were worried we would make mistakes, honestly, in rushing it, and we just didn't want to do that.
And usually, Deb, I have screens that say what the projects are at this point, but just didn't have.
Yeah. But if we don't know it, we're happy to look it up for you. Or if you take it home and you have questions, you can always send them to us. Okay,
So,
yeah.
Second.
Smile, administrators, we're all staring at you.
This is where we ended.
Yep. Yeah, so Cheryl talked a little bit about this, but we will adjust these costs as they become known to us. There's just some we don't have yet. I believe the business insurance came in today, but we did not have time to factor that in.
It's only quotes.
Oh, quotes, sorry. It's only quotes. Not going to help us.
Talk about this?
I'm sure.
There are some documents in your folder that Colleen thought it would be good to go over them.
So their stapled packet with the chapter 70 information. I shared mine with Mike. So the top page looks like this. This, I was telling Cheryl, I probably learned more about finance and budget this year than last year for sure. But when I was sitting on a Mars meeting, Julie Kelly said, you should make sure every townsperson has this, every school committee member has it, because it becomes very, very clear where our challenges in funding are.
like it.
Well, this isn't anything new, Deb.
No, and Cheryl
All
said,
of
I do
these-
this every year.
All of these documents are part of presentations as.
You know why? Because you pretty it up and make it look fair.
Actually, these are right off of DESC. So the first one is actually the report, the totalized report for the required contribution calculation and what the Chapter 78 and required next school spending is. I don't have on here what the percentage increases are for the towns, but what's interesting to see is the huge increases. I think that's on another one, of what the towns are mandated to pay towards our budget. And I also want to point out the foundation enrollment number that is on the Chapter 70 calculation sheets is not equal to the resident enrollment number. Those are totally different. Our resident enrollment numbers are head counts of students, and they are only our students that live in our 5 towns and are enrolled in our schools. The foundation, and they call them the same thing. That's the confusing part. The foundation enrollment that are on the Chapter 70 sheets is every kindergarten through grade 12 student who lives in our district that we are financially responsible for. So if, for example, if school only counts as half, doesn't matter if they go. So when this number comes out, another thing Julie Kelly will tell people is make sure that you understand how they get to your foundation enrollment number. Because a couple of years ago, DESE messed the whole thing up. And people are saying, why is my number so low? Why is my number so low? So don't try to equate those two, okay? The next sheet that's in here.
These I all remember. This first one I don't remember seeing.
Because I show more detail on the next one. Yeah. So the next, but this is the DESE and it's more detail. So it actually has here what the percentage increases are for the required local contributions for our 5-member towns, which is the base of the assessment calculation. So we have our total budget minus certain things, like you got to pull out certain things, but I have a cheat sheet if anybody wants it. This is the base for every town. So you have your budget and each of the towns have to pay this, and whatever is remaining, we divide up by that resident enrollment. So you see where the big hits are is Barry this year and New Braintree in requirements. So what I heard or read, I think I read it in the PowerPoint from DESE, is they used to give the towns, if you were not at your target, say you were 4% from your target, well, they would hit you for a 2% increase because you're not quite at your target, but they wouldn't make you go to the 4%. They made everybody go to that percentage this year. So there are going to be big hits across the state for that. The next sheet is the calculation of Chapter 70 requirement. I don't think anybody wants me to run through here, but what you will see is a comparison between the current year and what our enrollment was. And again, this is foundation enrollment, so don't tie it to resident enrollment, what our foundation budget is. So our foundation budget only went up by $128,000. So if we're getting increase, and those rates are later on, but if we're getting increases in an allowance for benefits and for special education students and for low income students and for English language learners, but we had declining enrollment, we're not seeing anything. I mean, that is a 0.46 increase in the foundation budget. Our budget's going up by 7.09%. The state is only giving us credit for 0.5%. And our aid is going up by 0.82, $75 per kid. Required net school spending is going up by 2.48. So even though our foundation budget is only going up by 0.5%, our required local contribution is going up by 2.5%. Well, so what that's saying is this is what you need to fund education, 0.5% increase, but you're required to at least be 2.5%, and our budget's at 7%. But it's adequate. You should see their PowerPoint. It's adequate education. I'm sorry, I'm become cynical in the retirement years. So this again is always part of our public hearing presentation, so the whole committee sees it at that time. The next sheet is actually the foundation budget, and behind that is the amount of money for each student in those categories based on the cost, what cost we're looking at. So for example, the first line says preschool. We get in our foundation budget, the allocation of $288.66 for every preschool student. If you look down at high school, we get in administration $457.31, I think that is, for each student. And you add them up by the number of students in each grade, and that's how the foundation budget is put together. So the foundation budget for us is what, 27 million, 27.8 million? And what's our budget? 42.4. It's adequate. It's adequate. And let me just remind, especially Maribel and Crystal, that you've been here before, but I don't know if you've been on budget before. We have anywhere between 1.8 in my career and 2.2. Where our money is going for school choice. For the Champions program, which is like our after-school program, and we charge caps, I'm sorry.
No, and caps, yeah.
And we charge off a custodian because they're there to clean up that excess after school. So we're using multiple sources for the total operation of the district. And so it's well above 42 million. And I usually have that screen by now, but I just didn't have time to do it. But I will prepare for the district, for the committee, where our other sources are. So it's not that, you know, that when the towns say, why is your budget going up? It's not only the budget, we're using other sources as well. So they're not paying for everything it takes to operate our district. We're getting them from other sources. And that's,
And oftentimes we see indeed.
and we have done that. We have done that. So if we have excess that was not spent in one year, we generally put it towards the next year. Yes, I think there's only been a few years in the recent past where there wasn't a use of E&D. And I think that's because our balance was so low, we were nervous to do that.
Balance is still pretty low, right? Like,
Our E&D balance, do you remember what that is?
Yeah, it was like was it 750,000?
880, I think.
880?
Yeah.
Which is really, I mean, they recommend we have like.
5%.
Yeah, a couple.
5% of your operating budget.
Yeah,
That's
so
what the limit is.
You can't rely on hitting that every year.
So I think we just wanted to bring these to your attention tonight while we had them, but they'll be part of the public hearing presentation and much more detail into what it means in calculating assessments.
I appreciate getting this together for tonight. And I know it's a large increase in the work, right? This is the first time we're seeing it. But I also appreciate typically there are a lot more positions and other things. And I think, you know, we all know we can't afford it. So I do appreciate that this is like what we really need and let's figure out how to make it work approach. So just like to comment on that.
Any other comments?
We're done. Is that the last one, Jess? That's the last one. That's the last
One other thing I'd like to say is, I know these special ed programs, I mean, there's been such a need for so long, and it just keeps increasing, but that is a cost saving. I see it as a cost savings ultimately, and I mean, there's no better place than to serve students in their home district. So it's a win-win all around, but it's absolutely a cost save.
Because you don't only have the tuition if the student is placed out for those needs. The transportation is what's so huge right now.
And I just want to, I know we have some administrators on the screen, but, one thing I just want to acknowledge about Jill is her background as a BCBA. Jill doesn't approach anything without thinking about data. That's just how she is. So already this year, she's really made a concerted effort to bring students back to our district where it felt like we can absolutely service them and sometimes feel like we're servicing them better than where they're currently located. And she's worked hard to restructure our SOAR programs. And I just want to give a shout out to our administrators too, because we really couldn't do that without their support. So these programs are going to live in their buildings. And so we really need everyone at the table to be thinking through this. And Jill's spent a lot of time looking at where the needs are and trying to make sure that we're building a program for a number of kids. To your point, Mark, we don't want to build programs and have 2 kids in it. We feel confident that, we can have robust programs to offer our students. And we don't want to do them halfway, which is why we're seeking consultation for some of the programs, because we feel like that's really important to get experts aligning with us, sort of like we did with the NEC program. I think we're all really proud that we transitioned that to the SOAR program and it's going so well. And so that is how we would like to approach
We did
these.
try the language-based program and I don't believe it would start.
Yeah, Jill has been visiting them. She has connected with a lot of people. So we feel like we have a handle on what it should really look like with, having real professional partners with us to make sure that our teachers are receiving the training they need. And that we have clear criteria and guidelines for really what that looks like for the kids. So more to come, more to come. But thank you. And, I'm sticking around for a little while. If you have any questions. And then, like I said, if you go home and you look at something and you're like, oh, I wonder about that, please send me an email. I'm happy to help as much as I can and get the answers where I need to. And I just thank you for bearing with us and know that we will sharpen our pencils.
Hopefully the state will too.
Yeah, they're,
Follow.
so I will put a little plug in. I know that MARS, MASC, MASS, the Mass Municipal Association, they're all working together because they have really a groundswell of support. I think last time we met with MARS, it was up to 232 school districts that were going to be in hold harmless this year. Next year, they anticipate over 240. So they're going to be looking for all of us to hit our legislators hard with letters and statements and stories and things like that. I was sharing with Cheryl, that at the last MARS meeting, Julie Kelly, we always talk about her, but she was saying, don't hesitate to ask your legislators to put a reservation for your school district on there. And Cheryl's like, oh boy, but she was saying, if you have capital projects you haven't been able to fund year after year after year, to put them forward, and it might be your year to get it. I don't know, but I just know there's a lot of people really frustrated. I think Quabbin has been frustrated for a long time, and now many, many other school districts are starting to really see the impact.
Before we
Sorry.
close.
Yes.
This just came out from Mass Budget that you
Oh.
might want to talk about. So Mass Budget and Policy Center just sent, it's not touch. It's not a
Oh.
touch screen. I'm old school. Just sent out a notice and some guidance on, if you haven't heard, the new president has put a halt to all federal funding of grants today. So they put out this, if you wanted to maybe just.
Yeah, so basically, they're saying that the directive to temporarily halt payment for federally funded programs is harmful and especially devastating for vulnerable populations. Although the freeze is stated to be temporary, it could lead to permanent cuts for critical services and further deepen inequities across our state and country. In the coming days and weeks, we'll better understand the impact of the proposed freeze on Massachusetts residents. It's imperative that any loss of federal funding be addressed by the state in order to continue support for critical programs at risk. The state will likely bear some of the responsibility of filling in the gaps left behind. The Commonwealth can close loopholes for billionaire global corporations to recover revenue to meet the needs of Massachusetts families in crisis. Lawmakers may also need to consider withdrawing money from our rainy day fund to ensure that critical programs are able to continue operating for Massachusetts families. Before the meeting tonight, we did get notification that our largest grants, our title grants and our special education grants, will not be impacted. So that was good news. But as we stated, we have a lot of other grants that we get to support our students. So
We tried to get some reimbursements under the wire. We said, we were told tonight it would be, but they were frozen at 1
We were
o'clock.
told at noon today at work too,
Yeah.
if we had,
Yeah, we couldn't get them.
we didn't try.
through.
yeah.
Any other comments or questions? Guess that's it. I
Okay.
guess I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second?
Meeting adjourned at 18:47.
Nice.